All right, hello everyone. Glad to spend a little time with you this evening. Shanda, give me a thumbs up if audio is okay. Oh, sorry, you just went off.
Yep,
Audio
you're good.
okay?
You're good.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Okay, so my video tends to get pixelated sometimes, so if it gets too distracting, I will stop video. Otherwise, I am an extreme extrovert, and the 10 to 12 months I've been working from home now solidly have been pretty hard on me. So anytime I get the opportunity to interact with facial expressions and things like that, I'm all about it. So feel free to share your video if you want to your level of comfort, but I will share mine as long as my Wi-Fi and technology allows me. So again, thank you for spending some time tonight. As Shanda mentioned, a tried and true Deltasig for many years now, hailing from the great state of Missouri. I was IOTA Omicron Initiate 615 back in the mid-90s. And went on, as Shanda said, to serve some time on the board of directors, and then have also been able to volunteer through things like this, through things like fundraising, whatever the case may be. Haven't missed a Grand Chapter Congress since I initiated. So I'm excited for Cleveland and all the events that hopefully, fingers crossed, are going to come. So my professional background, I actually pursued a degree in human resource management. And I kind of joke about that because a lot of folks through my career, I have found kind of stumbled into HR, or perhaps they just kind of found themselves going that direction. Very few of us have like purposely sought it out. And I actually started out as a psychology major for a hot minute, decided that 6 to 8 years of school might not be on my to-do list, and tried to figure out a way to still find something that was meaningful to me in that space. So I switched to a business degree in human resource management. My school, in fact, doesn't even offer that specificity anymore, and then have a minor in psychology. And the two go hand in hand, if you can, of course, imagine that. So I have often said that people fascinate me. Their behaviors, their motivations, things like that are just always been very intriguing to me. So that's what keeps me around. So I have worked in human resources since I graduated from college. I have found myself most notably, typically in like government or not-for-profit service sectors. I didn't intentionally do that. That's just kind of where I landed. And it just fits well with my servant leadership. I'm a fan of servant leadership, having a servant's heart. I've had the fortune of working for faith-based organizations, and that's also in line with that for me. So again, that's just kind of where I ended up and where now I purposely gravitate towards. So I will also say that by working in those types of environments, we're often not known for being up on business. We're often not known for the dollars that we can spend on technology and marketing and things like that. So I apologize now if you folks are like, hey, this stuff she's talking about, like been there, done that. That could totally be true. But I want to just share the story of what Missouri has been able to do that, in my opinion, is very ungovernment-like. And then also not about just the changes that we're going through, but how we've been able to take people along with us. Oh, my little brother just joined. Hi, Angie. How we've been able to take people along with us, and how data has definitely become our friend in that journey. So again, I am watching chat. Shanda's helping me to facilitate that. So if anybody has anything as we go along, you are welcome to put it there, and we'll stop. Very informal. This is more like a conversation. And I would definitely say this isn't a training per se. It's just really me sharing our story of what we've done over the last 2 years. So attempting to advance a slide. There we go. So what we're going to chat about this evening, I'm talking about truly what is a talent management transformation? Like, what does it really mean to transform the entire way that we do people services for the state of Missouri? The key components of that we focused in on, I'll share with you. Definitely key phrases here, no joke. Get the right people in the right place. Our motivating mantras. I can tell you a little bit about the state of Missouri has a chief operating officer, and working for him is like no joke. And so he's got a lot of mantras that honestly, they're kind of tongue in cheek, but if you think about them, it's like, yep, that's totally where we need to be. And then finally, just how we were able to pull all of this off. A little bit about my my specific part in this. I am the director of talent acquisition. So I am just one piece of this entire talent management transformation. And I joined the team in July of 2019 as it was growing. So 18 months or so now on my journey. So I will speak to the entirety of it, but recruitment is my passion and where I'm at most. So if I tend to start, getting chatty about that, you'll kind of understand that that's where I hang out day in and day out. Okay, so what is a talent management transformation? And I really, at this point, and we can watch the chat, like when you saw the title of the talk or you think about talent management, what is it to you when you think about a talent management transformation? And I'll be watching the chat here and I can read those out, or you're welcome to unmute yourself, whichever.
Recruitment techniques.
Recruitment techniques. Okay, thank you. Thank you for contributing. Angie, do I need to call on you? She's just on because she wanted to watch and make fun of me.
I would never make fun of you, and I knew you were going to call me out.
I think this is Charlie. From a talent management transformation, I think it's really about how we focus on our current employee population. And I say employees because I'm an HR business partner. So how we handle employees and how we be able to develop them and manage them throughout their career and from day to day, as well as succession planning and so forth. So I think that's part of the transformation from a talent management perspective.
Yes, thank you. And it really is about that total journey. Like, what does it look like the moment we start recruiting someone and they come on board, develop their career, go different ways, and then maybe ultimately retire with us. So definitely that talent management is that entire life cycle of the employee with us. And I'll watch chat again if there's any other thoughts. So really where we're going, we try to keep these things simple and we try to keep them repetitive so that they just become ingrained in what we do every day for business. Better government. In Missouri, we've defined that as meeting Missouri citizens' expectations so that we are good as any organization. Lots of folks, and I joke because I have worked for government before, I know all the jokes about, when you work for government and things like that, and it takes 3 people to do one person's job, that sort of thing. We're really about being ungovernment-like. And so that services you receive from us would be just like you would expect from any other business that you might engage with at any time. And right now we have Governor Mike Parson. He actually was just reelected. So we'll have 4 more years with his administration. And he likes to say our goal right here is that we are excellent citizens serving their fellow citizens. So certainly what I do in recruitment, it's not as daily impactful as that individual working in Department of Social Services. It's not as impactful as that highway patrolman that's out on the road. And we totally get that. But I was having a conversation today with folks about don't underestimate the ways that we do have an influence, and particularly in recruitment when we think about like the job seeker experience. We're impacting citizens. So that's where we like to maintain our focus, is really thinking about the people that we serve in our own state. We are one of us. Okay, so key components that we honed in on for this talent management transformation. Again, talent acquisition, this is where I hang out. We completely revolutionized our recruitment approach. We have 16 executive state agencies, and then of course we have the judicial branch and the legislative branch. It's going back to your civics classes. So we're in the executive branch, which means we serve directly under the governor. And so those 16 agencies, 18 months ago, 15 months ago, 16 months ago, each had 16 different ways of hiring people. And some of our larger agencies, for example, Department of Public Safety, which houses Missouri State Highway Patrol, and the State Emergency Management System, SEMA, they each had their own within their own. And so if you wanted to apply for a job with the state of Missouri, you had to go and do whatever that agency said you had to do. And one agency might say email a resume. Another agency might say fax your resume. No kidding. Another agency might have some sort of online presence, and a couple had great, robust systems. So it was all over the place. And to do that, obviously 16 different ways within each other. We were not presenting well. We were not serving our citizens well. So when I started in July of 2019, the RFP had already been done. The review of vendors had already been done, and we were ready to select the vendor that was going to host our new applicant tracking system. So I couldn't decide in the beginning if that was good or bad because I had no background knowledge. I had no idea what the agencies had said was, you know, their wish list. Of course, I could read and kind of catch up. But when I started, not only was I trying to like learn my agency, learn my team, you know, figure out all the layers of government, because we are quite large, 50,000 employees. On top of that, I had to think about starting a new project with a vendor that I had nothing to do with up until this point. So started in July, announced in August that our vendor was KeoSite, and it is a small tech company based out of St. Louis. And super excited that we were able to partner with someone that is in Missouri. Again, Missourians helping Missourians. So super excited with that company. And I was saying just today, like the relationship that we have with them is unlike anything I've ever had with a vendor before. I've come from big box store applicant tracking systems, and the one-on-one service that, I mean, there's just no comparison. So I could talk for days and days about that. But so we awarded that contract in August. We kicked off the platform. We kicked off the project in September of 19. So again, I'm 2 months into this. I'm just trying to learn everybody's names still. And then we were able to start the project in September, and we went live January 6th of 20. So we took 16 agencies and all of their layers and all of their ways and all of their opinions and all of their strife and all of their whatevers, and put it into one place in 4 months and haven't looked back since. I'll be honest, it didn't take long for people to say, well, we all know that's not going to go live in January. I mean, nobody, you know, government doesn't do that. I mean, private sector doesn't do that. 4 months. So it quickly, if you know anything about me, it quickly became like no fail option. Like we are launching January 6th, come hell or high water. And so we did. And so you can check it out at mocareers.mo.gov. If I do say so myself, I think it's pretty impressive. It looks lovely. It depicts the state of Missouri visually in a great space. It allows each of our state agencies to still have their own landing page so they can still be who they are and represent who they are, but we're all part of the bigger thing. And so it's just really visually interesting. And of course, now applicants have one way to apply. They can apply multiple times in one spot. They can sign up, all the things you expect, sign up for job alerts, you know, interact, filter by searches, keywords, things like that, that were not at all available 13 months ago. So with that, I also had the opportunity while going through all of this to participate in what we call the Missouri Leadership Academy. You kind of see it listed there under talent development. And as part of that Leadership Academy, we work on a capstone project. And then you also have, we have some one-on-one training with the Novak Institute from Mizzou. And with that program, we leave there with a big, hairy, audacious goal. Like, what is the next thing you want to conquer? And for me, what I selected is what we call a supportive recruitment process. That is where the recruiter, and again, a lot of companies are already like this. Government was not, very siloed, very separated. But in Office of Administration, which is where my position sits, we are now building what we call a supportive recruitment process, and that we have a recruiter that runs alongside that hiring manager from day one, not only in the technology, but with the candidates, sourcing the candidates, looking for candidates, interviewing the candidates, trying to do whatever we can to support that hiring manager, because as we know, they have other jobs that fill their day, and filling jobs, filling positions, interviewing, things like that, that's all extra duties. And so we want to make sure that we are supporting them as we go. And then also providing a good job seeker experience. You'll hear me say that a lot. And then we throw on some metrics and measure some data as we go along. And we got ourselves a new hairy, audacious goal here. So we are measuring lots of things. And I talked about data becoming your friend. We are trying to start simply. In talent acquisition, we have what we call the core four. And our main one, I won't get into all of them because a lot of them are kind of state specific, but the main one is time to fill. How long does it take us to get a new team member on board? SHRM puts out, Society of Human Resource Management puts out a good, better, best on some of these things. When I started, I had no idea. We had no data. Nobody was tracking any of this. And if they were tracking it with this definition. Somebody else might be tracking it with that definition. So now we've got one definition and we're following SHRM. And I picked good. I didn't think I should probably go for better or best just yet. And so SHRM says you should be able to fill a job in 45 days. So that is our goal. And we have some agencies that are hovering in the 50s and 60s. Kudos for them because they've never had to push themselves like this. As a state, I looked at the numbers today, we're at 70 some days. But the fact that we even know that now is a pretty big deal. So those are some of the things that we're doing in talent acquisition. I'll transition now to talent development. And this is what one gentleman spoke of, is just really helping people grow their career as they go. So we have contracted with LinkedIn. We have recruiter seats, and then we also have LinkedIn Learning. And we affectionately refer to that as Mo Learning. So for the first time, our 50,000 employees have online, on-demand access to tens of thousands of training topics. So we've really, and in this space, you know, the metrics here is we're watching how many people activate their profile, how many people log into their profile, how many hours are people tracking. And of course, when we all went home suddenly in March, our training hours went way up because people had to kind of figure out some new skills or they had some time to fill, so they kind of got it figured out. So those are the metrics that we watch in talent development. And not only do we have the ability to access all of this learning, we can also add custom content. And then those things feed into a talent management training portal. People can keep track of it. They can run reports. They can see how many hours they've had. And again, this is all brand new and not too long ago was a very foreign concept. So I'm going to take a little drink here. Also with talent development, again, when you think about the number of employees we have some pretty good talent that if we harness it in the right way, we can put on our own stuff that's really good. So we have two programs in particular that we have built ourselves using some contracted talent, some external resources to help us, like I mentioned, Missouri, the Novak Training Institute from Mizzou, but now we've developed what we call the Missouri Way. And so it is a 3-day intensive program, all being refurbished now in some sort of virtual world. But it's a way for us to tap our talent and say, you know what, we see something in you. You have a career here that can grow in so many different directions. Let us help you do that. And so we have this intensive program called the Missouri Way that goes through a variety of things, everything from the hands-on stuff of like, how do I understand the state budget, to how do I develop skills and think about being a leader and things like that. And like that prongs off of the Missouri Way are all kinds of individual classes that people can take a part of. And we have done that all ourselves. Our talent development group has been able to organize that, find the talent to do that, facilitate that, everything from actually hosting the class to who orders lunch for the day. Those skills and things are all covered in our talent development group. And then in addition to that, we have the Missouri Leadership Academy, and it's a 6-month program. I had the advantage of being in this last spring's class, so a year ago now. So yes, in the middle of launching Mo Careers, I also went on this multi-month endeavor with 30 other people around the state. And this is something that really enlightens you to how the state works and just being able to network and think about how the connections, we all do our thing, but they really all connect. If you think about like Department of Conservation and Department of Natural Resources, like they kind of do some similar stuff. And then we've got the Missouri Veterans Homes, and then we've got Department of Mental Health facilities that do healthcare stuff. So just really figuring out how those things connect. We get, again, very siloed before. So the idea was like, let's break this down. We are one government. Let's do this together. And we get very intensive training with that excellent stuff. It's probably the best thing I've ever done professionally. And also with that, not only did I have my big, hairy, audacious goal, I also was able to participate in a capstone team that actually put us in the governor's office presenting to the governor and his team and other division leadership. My team was on inclusion and diversity. You can imagine honestly, we had that team assignment. You can pick from the topics and your team comes together. So this is a topic that I chose, and it was before George Floyd, and it was before Ahmaud Arbery, and it was before Breonna Taylor. So imagine the journey that our team took. Not only did we know it was a hard topic to address anyway, then when we see those things happening in our world, certainly I'll be honest, like we got a lot of attention because of it, and that was a good thing. It gave us a better platform. And so our capstone team is actually one that is still going. A lot of teams present and then the projects fall off. You guys know how that happens, but this is one that is not falling off. We are engaging with agencies continually. We get to present to the governor every couple of months on our progress. So that I'm really excited to have been a part of that, and that through something so horrible that we had the opportunity to have a platform that people are now really listening. So super excited about the Missouri Leadership Academy. And then also with talent development, we have transitioned to Engage 2.0. That's our internal vernacular. We no longer do that like big 10-page performance appraisal that everybody dreads, and it gets turned in at the 11th hour because there's a deadline, and nobody likes that anymore. And it wasn't meaningful. It wasn't helping people grow. It wasn't helping them develop. We don't have a lot of money, so it's not like you got raises left and right. We have to wait for the legislator to approve a raise. So it just really had lost its luster. So now we have revolutionized the way we do performance feedback. And we have a monthly, we call them engage sessions, obviously. And it's just monthly touch bases like, hey, how are you doing? Are you going where you want to go? Is there any training that you need? What hurdles can I take down for you? And so we have a growth model that we are talking about. And then every quarter, we're able to formally kind of go in and make a few assessment marks, things like that. Not a full-blown performance appraisal, but assessments. And then what's also super cool about it is that we're asking for upward feedback. So all of our teams have the ability to rate or appraise their leader. And then those things are aggregated and sent back to us. So it is super cool, so much easier. Really excited about where we've been able to go with what we would prefer, what we'd refer to as a performance appraisal system. I'm going to pause there for just a second. I'm sorry, I've covered two things: talent acquisition, talent development. Any questions about any of those before I go on? Yes, thank you, Shanda. Any questions? Okay, the third component then of our transformation is really around talent strategy. Like, what does it do to plan and organize what you want to do? And so it's really our overall approach to project management with a focus on continuous improvement. And I'll be honest, when I started, it was just about getting Mo Careers up and running, like just get it done. And so honestly, is there a lot of time to really plan and forecast and think about where you want to be? Not in the middle of that moment. And so right there with it was LinkedIn Learning and Mo Learning. Right there with it was Engage 2.0. Right there with it was the Missouri Leadership Academy. So all these things really were firing at once. And so a year ago, it was just about get them up and running. Well, now we're able to more transition to what is our strategy? Now that we've got these things all up and running, how do we intentionally decide where we want to go with them? So definitely, this is where our data comes in heavily. We're using technology around Qualtrics. No longer are we doing these individual weird survey monkeys or, hey, email me back your thoughts by Friday kind of thing. We're using Qualtrics for so many different surveys, and it's super cool. I'm doing it with onboarding surveys. New employee onboarding has become part of a talent acquisition arm, so excited to do that. We do what we call a quarterly pulse survey, where we are surveying our entire workforce. That's how we do Engage 2.0. It's all powered by Qualtrics. So super impressive tool that we have been able to contract with, and super lucky to have it. Trello is another tool that we have used for project management. There are free versions that aren't too shabby. Like, you can get a lot done with your free version. And then of course, being able to pay for more add-ons makes it even more super cool. But it is more visually interesting, especially in a virtual world. And so I encourage you to check out Trello if you're looking at any project management needs. And then now we've also transitioned to Tableau. Tableau is our data center. So again, super excited to use some of this external technology. Honestly, 10, 15 years ago, we would have built our own. Like the state just sort of written their own stuff and built their own. And that's okay. But of course, through time, you discover that things don't talk to each other, or it quickly becomes antiquated, or someone who was the key person retired and now we're kind of struggling. So being able to leverage some modern technology with some of these vendors has been super cool because they're all built in a similar fashion and able to talk to each other. So for example, all of my data metrics in Mo Careers that are part of time to fill and things like that, like Tableau is going to go, it goes and grabs that and gets the data all loaded each month. So super cool. So for the first time ever, I got to see a demo today. We are launched this month with our department, and then we're going to launch statewide within the next few months. So for the first time ever, an HR user at Department of Economic Development can go in and look at their time to fill. They can look at how many people have activated Mo Learning accounts. They can go see how many FTE they have in supervisory roles. They can go see the diversity of their supervisory employees. All of this stuff is just at their fingertips that they might have all been running reports and looking at data before, but they had to do it on their own. They all had their own approach, and maybe somebody defined a fiscal year versus a calendar year. So you never could compare anything. You never could really see where your good movement was. So now we have Tableau that is just so super cool with so many filters and options. And it really, we are starting with senior leaders having access to that. And then the end goal is that every employee in the state of Missouri can go in and access this data. So really becoming transparent and open about our data as well. What questions might I answer from key components? Okay, keep on trucking here. So definitely, you've heard, of course, the phrase, get the right people in the right place. In division of personnel, and I laugh about that. I cringe sometimes when I say division of personnel. This is the funkiness sometimes of working for the government. There is actually a state statute that helped create the division of personnel, which I'm super grateful for all those years ago, but it is in state statute that we are called division of personnel. So to change ourselves to something around talent management or something a little bit more modern literally requires the act of Congress. So you pick your battles sometimes. So DOP, we are Division of Personnel. So we have a leadership group of 10 people that are running all of these things, not only running OA, Office of Administration, HR, but then also running these functions for the entire state. And so there's 10 of us, 70% of us just joined in the last 2 years. So it's not that people that were on the team weren't talented. It wasn't that at all. It's just that some folks, quite honestly, didn't have a desire. They didn't want to do this much change and this much work. So just opted to either retire or find a new path. A-okay. Like, it's important to know what you do and what you don't want to do. Others that had good talent were, cultivated. And so 30% of those folks that were able to be part of this leadership group, they're still around. Their historical knowledge is invaluable. And there's all kinds of things around state statutes and weird rules and things like that that they are so needed for, but their roles have significantly changed. Nobody looks like what they did, not 2 years, but for sure, even 12 months ago. So getting the right people in the right place. So to do that, we had to be very bold. I'll be honest, when I saw the job advertised, I was not actively looking. I mean, we're all kind of curious, right? Like anytime you see something that's kind of in your realm, you're a little curious about it. And I had worked for the state before. And when I saw the job description, the Division of Personnel is transforming its approach to end-to-end talent management. I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then they talked about recruitment and things like that. And I'm like, they don't have this role. Like, this does not exist. And so by just the nature of the way the job description or the posting was written, I was intrigued. And so be very bold in what you put out there. And again, working for the government, working for not-for-profit, you're not going to get rich. So it's hard sometimes to find talent that can work for the salary. But again, if a servant place is where I wanted to be, so that's not my first priority. But just the way that they were very audacious in how they worded this was very ungovernment-like. Again, been in mid-Missouri my whole life. Government is right here in my town. So I was just intrigued by the way the words were put out there. And then don't settle. my boss did share with me later that they had over 100 applications for my job. So that kind of makes you feel good. But when you think about truly like, what are the skills? It's not about the experience. It's about what are the skills that we really need to take this talent management transformation forward. Don't settle on your talent. Like keep looking, keep digging, keep re-engineering what could be, and then certainly to be agile as you do all of that. So that's how we were able to get the right people in the right place. And we are a well-oiled machine. Like we meet every single day. We have each other's backs. We can professionally disagree and we can push and things like that. But by virtue of being bold and not settling, we were able to really formulate a pretty dynamic, awesome team. Any questions about getting the right people in the right place?
Hi, Dawn. I do have one question, and it's
Sure.
going back to that being bold part. I've started a new I'm building my own business through New York Life, building my own brand as a financial representative. And one of the things as an entrepreneur that I'm mentally struggling with is being bold and countering those fears. What suggestions do you have, since you are in, especially since that was mentioned on your page, on the previous slide?
Sure. I think especially, and I will tell you individually, personally, I envy entrepreneurs. I think your can-do, gotta make it win spirit is enviable. I sometimes wish I could be as bold as an entrepreneur, because you just put it out there and you go for it. And I think in that regard, I think sometimes with like, hey, what's going to happen here? I think that's a good approach to have. This is rough, because when I went into it trying to decide whether I was accepting this job or not, I was in a job that I loved. I was working for an organization that I loved. And I just really myself had to think about how am I leaving this organization? The organization that I left, again, loved it. But I had, and this sounds a little boastful, but I had done for them what I needed to do. Like I had them in a space with recruitment and being in service to others that I felt like they were able to do that now on their own. So my services were needed somewhere else. So really thinking about being bold in that way, it's, we're called to share our talent. And so that's how I viewed my journey, is that I had done what I could do successfully for this previous group, and I could still be there and still be loving it. But somebody else needed me more, if that makes sense. Somebody else needed me more. So to be able to join the state of Missouri team and be able to go on this journey has been, it's been more rewarding for me than anybody else, for sure. I'm sorry, Ryan, that was kind of around the edge there.
No, it was helpful. I'm just writing notes on that right now.
Sure.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it, Dawn.
Sure. Anything else? Okay. So again, we have a chief operating officer who is apolitical. He is not affiliated with any political party, has had an extensive career in private citizen military support, done some pretty significant things in his history, and has worked with some pretty cool people. And he can slice and dice you and make you feel all crazy, but at the end of the day, you're like, he is exactly right. Like, he is exactly right. This is what we've got to do. So I have learned so much serving underneath him. And these are some of, we call them the Drewisms. His name is Drew. So some of these are common to continuous improvement, like do, learn, do. You just got to get in there and do it. And again, when I think about launching an ATS within 4 months, when everybody was doing their own thing, and some honestly had no desire to want to come along and do it the same as everybody else, literally, we were building the airplane while in flight. Like, we were doing things 1 month and we had no idea what was going to do the next month. And you just got to, and I'm kind of hopping around here, but you've just got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have just got to get into a space where at the end of the day, you're going to figure it out. You've got talented people on the project, but there's going to be strife and frustration and all those sorts of things that come with it. So we were building the airplane while in flight. Another one that we've had to get, I really like this one. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, we can put out good products. Are they perfect? No. Are there things we want to enhance? Of course. This actually kind of resonates with me from back when I used to work for the Missouri Department of Transportation, and our dollars were always limited. There's never enough money to go around for everything you want to do. So at that time, our mantra was, we build Chevys, not Cadillacs. A Chevy's still going to get you where you need to go. The Cadillac just has the bells and whistles. So when you think about how you spend your transportation dollars, let's build Chevys instead of Cadillacs, kind of the same thing. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Getting good products out there is still worth it. Don't wait till it's perfect, because then you've missed it. Is the juice worth the squeeze? You know, is the strife that we're going through, is whatever we're going through worth it? Like, are we getting enough bang for our buck? And I'll be honest, I have to very regularly remind our users, we built this system for all 16 agencies. And now we're also outside the executive branch. We had someone from the legislative branch say, hey, I like what you're doing, we want in. That doesn't happen in government. So we've had to build a platform that works for everybody most of the time. And so is the juice worth the squeeze? You know, when we launch something new, my rule is we live in it for 60 days. Unless something is just absolutely broken, or a link isn't working the way it's supposed to, or something like that, of course we'll fix those. Otherwise, my rule is we live in it for 60 days. And then at the end of 60 days, is something really not working right, or were we just uncomfortable and now we got used to it? So don't feel like you have to just knee-jerk make changes as you get into something new. Really make sure the juice is worth the squeeze. Plan, do, check, act. It's a continuous cycle. You know, we will do things. We have quarterly development plans now that we're working with Mo Careers, and we shuffle and redo and assess them all the time. And like I said, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. All right. So how do you pull all this together? I know this is not a newsflash to anybody, but you have to have your top leadership support. You just have to. You know, you have to have their attention. You have to have their buy-in. You have to have, even if they're not giving it daily lip service, they need to know what you've got going on and know why you're doing it. So as I've mentioned, we've had the fortune of being able to be in front of agency directors and the governor's office on a pretty regular basis. You know, the other day, our governor in his inauguration remarks mentioned diversity. That was part of our Leadership Academy capstone team. So things like that, you can kind of see it resonating with people, but you have to have your top-down support. And then obviously knowing your why. Why do you do what you do? Why are you trying to do this thing that you're wanting to do? And make sure you're sharing that consistently. So I know it sounds pretty basic, but anytime you're starting a new initiative, whether it's talent management or whatever, make sure you understand why you're doing it. Insane project timelines. Again, I'll be honest, when I took this job, I'm like, oh, wow, what have I done? But then when there started to be that kind of fodder around, we're never going to launch in 4 months, then it became my mission to get it done, of course, all of ours. And we had a huge, not huge, but a project team that was running right along with me. So they knew that these insane project timelines. And we've done some touch bases with our agencies, and many of them would say, like, gosh, you guys are doing a lot of things fast. And sometimes I want to say, just slow down already. But then I look back and I have to realize, but we're getting it done. Like, it's working. And some days it feels crazy, and it is crazy. But to be able to have an insane project timeline, you have to have some documents at your disposal. Project charters. I actually have an example of one I can pull up later, one that I'm working on right now for my new initiative around onboarding. But a project charter, again, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And who's going to be involved? And then a DICE score. Those DICE each stands for an acronym, but it's basically assessing your risk. How risky is this project of failing? And what do I need to do to either get ahead of that or reassess my project scope? Gantt charts, I never would have believed it. I've always been a pretty organized, use my calendar kind of gal, but Gantt charts really visualize where your project needs to be going, so you know every day where your project is at. And then also pulling it together, thinking about an organization as large as ours, a cross-functional project team. And I haven't mentioned that in addition to all of these efforts, Office of Administration is kind of like the corporate office of all the state agencies. We didn't always have the best reputation. We were slow, we were cumbersome. All we wanted to do was tell you no, it's against the law, it's against the policy, we can't, the statute says we can't, no, we won't. So I had all of that uphill battle as well. So you really have to figure out a way to be intentional, to bring people along with you. And what I do is I choose the hardest ones first. Pretty quickly, we did the initial launch of Mo Careers, and we pretty quickly had a couple of customers that rose to the top of Chicken Little, the sky is falling. This doesn't work for me. Our agency is special. We do things different, those sorts of things. So when it came time to pick the project team to do an expansion, we've already expanded the platform a couple months ago. Our project manager, I had the fortune of hiring someone to be our project manager for it. I said, guess which agencies we're going to have on the project team? And of course, she's like, no, they're so hard to work with. Don't make me do that. But now we can definitely see by having them come along on the expansion journey with us, they're invested. They've bought in. The roughness of going through this expansion change, they are now our cheerleaders and our advocates because they helped build it. So if you can get past that personal, choose the hardest ones first and bring them along with you. We were very intentional with our agency size. We have some agencies that have 10,000 employees. We have a couple agencies that have 200 employees. So very different worlds. So we were very specific to make sure that we were mindful in how many agencies did we have and make sure we were representing, small ones, big ones, medium ones, who were agencies that are just fundamentally more engaged, good or bad. And then certainly thinking about diversity of our team. I didn't want all HR directors on the team. I needed some folks that were maybe the HR clerk or maybe a hiring manager out in a correctional facility. We really had to be mindful of getting our team in the right place. Meet people where they are. Again, that's the psychology of my job. Again, working against a bad rap in the beginning, I did a lot of listening. I did a lot of head nodding. I did a lot of, I understand. That does feel stinky. I don't blame you. That does not sound good at all. And so just really trying to empathize with folks, let people be where they are. And then as you slowly earn their trust in that fashion, show them what you're going to do for them and allowing them space for discomfort and frustration. I'm the first one to own it. If we've got something coming out, I will say something to the effect of, guys, like this isn't pretty. Like it's going to be bumpy as we get going. And we know we've got some steps we've got to still smooth out, but just bear with me. We'll get there. So I just own it all up front. That way, nobody can come at me and say, well, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. I've already told them what's wrong. And just allowing them that space to be uncomfortable and to be frustrated. And I always, my favorite analogy, and it seems to resonate with people, I said, think about the last time you got a new cell phone. I just upgraded my phone and I no longer have a home button. I'm looking at my phone here. Like those first few days, I'm like, I hate this thing. I don't know where to swipe. My home button, like what's that anymore? How do you turn the volume up on this thing? I'm in a meeting and don't know how to silence it. Like all of those things that happen when you first get a cell phone, we hate it those first few days. Like everything is weird and we feel like we're all left thumbs. But it gets better. You learn it and the habits change and they break and you learn the new stuff. So that's the same thing with any change. And so just allowing people to be uncomfortable at first and just let them be mad. It's all right. Any questions on how to pull it together there? I got one more slide on this. Okay. In your face communication. That's the other thing. You have got to be completely transparent. You have got to be on top of this every minute of every day. So with these projects, we do weekly reports to senior leaders, and I have to draw out, this goes again to the governor's office. Now, is the governor looking at it? No, he's not, but his senior staffers. What are the 2 to 3 things we got done this week? What are the 2 to 3 things we're going to work on next week? And what is the scope of my project? No surprises management. Like red, green, yellow. Like green, this part of this project is going well. Yellow, got some concern here. Or red, like this part's going off rails. And you absolutely have to have an environment where you can be honest about that. You cannot be green, 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 and then fail. And it took me a little bit, honestly, to get comfortable with that. It's like, I don't want to report something as yellow, but we all know that projects are going to have yellows and reds. So no surprises management and weekly letting your bosses know where you're at with it. Weekly updates with key stakeholders and these teams, these project teams, as I form them, I literally have a conversation with their boss and I say, okay, I'm going to need them like 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, whatever it might be, being very honest about what that team is going to require, and then meeting with that team multiple times a week. Like we would meet, we're still meeting 4 days a week, specifically on some of these project pieces. So in your face communication, just like all the time. Okay, so I'll transition here a little bit to our data journey. We all know that data can be a good friend, and that's hard for HR folks sometimes. And I can say that because I've always been one. We have gut reactions, we have behaviors, we have things like that we use to make our decisions. But with the numbers, there's no emotion there. The facts are the facts. The numbers are what they are. So you need to know up front when you're looking at data and metrics, what does good look like? For our time to fill, I went out to SHRM, discovered that 45 days should be about where we're hanging out. So I was able to say, guys, our goal is 45 days. And this isn't just the world according to Dawn. This is a list of industry experts and best practices for what we do. Define what good looks like. Also with data, though, you can still have an element of human behavior, and that it does spur competition among each other. I'll be very interested to see what comes of when this Tableau dashboard is available for everybody, and everybody in the state can go see it. Not only can I go see OA stuff, I can go see that department and that department and that department. So once people start kind of doing that, naturally they get a little competitive. And our divisions are starting to do it now on time to fill. I can watch them do it. And so that human behavior will come into play that will spur competition, hopefully in a positive way. We all know what gets measured gets done. Those metrics that are on that Tableau dashboard, I want them to look good. So that's going to be my motivation to make sure we keep moving in the right direction. Again, some of these tools I've mentioned before, Trello, Qualtrics, Tableau, but then Basecamp is another internal tool. It's not awesome, but it is at least a way for a lot of folks to be together in one space, and you can store a lot of documents and things like that. So make sure your team has tools that they need to all hang out in the same space, especially virtually. And then again, whatever your data is, allow access and let people have lots of filters and be able to play around. We have these onboarding dashboards. We've been doing onboarding surveys since July. We have given all of our HR shops access to their own data. Like, we used to not do that. And of course, I'm about beyond the new girl card, but when I was new girl, I'm like, why not? It's their data. It's about their stuff. Why would we not want? Well, but they might not be able to interpret it correctly. I'm like, well, then we're not presenting it correctly. I mean, so allow people to have access to the data. Get transparent about it. The numbers are the numbers. All right, so I'm kind of wrapping up here. So this is just an example. This is honestly an old one. This was a Gantt chart that we had done back when we were getting some of these internal measures off the ground. Now, Mo Careers, my part isn't listed here because I was outward facing. These were all things that were going on inside the state agencies. So each agency could very clearly see, okay, this is coming and I'm going to have training this day, and then this is going to happen. And oh gosh, that overlaps when my team is also going to be getting a pay raise. So I better be prepared to address that. And so you can just very visually and easily see where the projects were at any given time. So super enjoy the Gantt chart, especially if you have multiple projects going on or people that manage multiple things. They have to be able to know what's expected of them and what's coming. And then finally, this is where we had some information on our centralized application tracking and onboarding. Again, these documents are now a year old, and so proud of where we've been able to come since then on some of these. And I'm going to escape out of here, maybe not. I was going to show you, yeah. Let me move some panes around here. I was going to show you an example of a project charter that I've got going on. Too many things open. So this is an example of a project charter that I have going on right now. We have, as I mentioned, started onboarding surveys in July, and we knew when we started them, you have to do something with what you're learning, right? So now we're offering like kind of what I'm calling consultative support to different agencies to help get an onboarding program more defined and up and running for their agency. So I've been able to, what is the scope? You know, what is success? What does good look like? I can identify the key players, like even calling out people by name. And then what is their role? Are they responsible for it, or are they just informed about it? And so being able to actually call out different teams and agency folks, and like Casey, she's my media supervisor. She needs to be consulted before I finalize anything. So being able to define the role so everybody knows what part they play. Who are our stakeholders? Who's going to be impacted by what we're doing? Very important. Key activities and milestones. That's where that Gantt chart will come into play. We've got a 3-month rotation figured out here on how we provide this support. So being mindful of what a 3-month cycle looks like. I still got to work on some of this, measures and targets. Got some time held to work on that later on this week. And then also I did the DICE score on the risk. So I was able to say, okay, duration. You know, you put in numerical values here, team integrity, commitment. So you put in actual scores on how you think folks are at with their effort and commitment to the project, and you come up with a score. And so right now, my 16, it's got some moderate risk. I can't ultimately make these agencies do anything. All I can do is help them develop the tools. So I do have some risk with that. But if you know that going in, you know where some of your pain points might be, and you can work ahead of them. All right, so that's my example of a project charter. What else? That's it. That's my talent transformation spiel. That's our story. What questions or what conversation do we have?
And feel free to undo your video if you'd like and join in.
I have a question. I know during your transformation presentation, you really talked about data and the facts are the facts. Where else do you see the future of HR transforming over the next couple of years with what's going on with the world and what you're currently working on at the state?
Mm-hmm. I think we are going to be digging into a lot more of succession planning. We at the state have what we affectionately refer to as a silver tsunami. We have a large number of individuals that are eligible to retire in the next 5 years. So if those people leave, what do you do with the knowledge that they take with them? So data has been our friend in that space. We can absolutely see where those folks sit, the numbers of percentages that could be impacted, and then what are we going to do to work on that to try to transfer that knowledge. So I think a lot of time needs to be spent in knowledge transfer. And then also, again, people aren't just looking sometimes to get promoted. You know, career ladders anymore aren't really ladders. They are more of a lattice work. Like, do I go over here and do this for a little bit, and then I go up, and then maybe I come over here, and then I go up, and maybe I go over here. And so that's the advantage of working for the state or a large organization like government. You can do lots of different things in lots of different places, but yet still have your home employer. So we went through a major initiative. We call it C3, classification, compensation, and something else. I don't live in that world. But C3, not only did we modernize our titling mechanisms and our pay ranges and offered more flexibility to those, we tried to better visualize for individuals, where could your career go? If you do this, maybe that's tied to this, this, and this. It doesn't all have to go one direction. You know, there could be lots of different branches that take off. So we've spent some time really trying to help our employees understand where their career could grow and take off from lots of different directions. It doesn't have to be one thing to the next. So that's where we're spending a lot of our future time. Charlie, anything else on that?
I do have another question. Do you have any books or websites just for any HR professional besides the SHRM and stuff like that, of just general information that you think would be good resources for us in the profession?
Sure. This isn't specific to just HR things, but McKinsey & Company, they are a consulting firm that's got some very progressive ways of supporting organizations. The state of Missouri has been using them. And a lot of the blogs and things that they put out and different newsletters, very intriguing just on how to do business. So I like things from McKinsey & Company quite a bit. Simon Sinek, of course, is another one that I like to follow. Oh gosh, her name is escaping me right now. Cy Wakeman. I love Cy Wakeman. CY Wakeman, reality-based leadership. I really like her stuff too. Good questions. Others?
I know we have a couple of collegiate members on here, and I'm making the assumption you joined this to learn more about HR professions and such. Any questions from you all? Great. Well, Dawn, that was fantastic information, very helpful. You know, gosh, what a journey you have been on since you joined the state of Missouri, and being a Missourian myself right now, thank you for doing good things for us in this state. I think this information was certainly helpful to those that joined us. I'm sure others will be sad that they missed out, but we will post this so that people can watch it later as well as a recorded webinar. Last chance for any questions. Otherwise, I know it's almost 10 o'clock Eastern time and getting late all across the country. All right. Well, Dawn, do you want to put your contact info in the chat real quick? So if anyone does have a question, they could reach out to you after the fact. So we'll let her put that in there. And if you want to screenshot that or write it down real quick, and then we'll go ahead and end this webinar. But we have many, many more webinars coming up on a wide variety of topics. So keep an eye on dsp.org. We will be sending you a survey in the next couple of days as well. If you'd fill that out for us, certainly helpful and appreciated. So again, Dawn, thank you so much for joining us. Always love to work with you, and see you again.
Nobody makes fun of my AOL. I've had it forever. It still works. It still works, y'all. And I have email, I do, but you know, it works, and I still get emails. I have no storage limits. Everything's fine. So do not make fun of the old fuddy-duddy here that just talked about all the super cool technology that still has AOL.
I love it.
Yeah. And it's all right. I get it all the time. I can take it.
Well, thank you all very much. Have a great evening. Hopefully we'll see you on another webinar very soon, or at the LEAD event coming up in a month.
Thank you for hosting this, and thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Bye,
Great
guys.
job, Dawn.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.